Well, the opportunity is to take what Julie just talked about in terms of quality jobs and make sure that the people who need those jobs, who are least likely to get really high quality jobs, the people for whom the ladders of opportunity to continue to move up are often non-existent or weak and break, how we actually center the people who are left behind because of racism, current, historical, and predictable, that they are able to fully participate and move forward. Understanding that this nation has a racist history is the first step to people understanding that we have to be conscious of race as we think about building a just society going forward. It's hard for people to grasp this when they are ahistorical in their orientation and in denial about what's right in front of them. What the murder of George Floyd did for millions of white Americans is it made it unavoidable to see state-sponsored violence being perpetuated against a Black man because he was Black and his life did not matter. This is not a new thing for people who are Black. They know it. But for too many people who are white, they just didn't want to see it. But because people were on lockdown, they were sitting in front of their cable televisions hour in and hour out. They all saw it, and they saw that police officer looking in the camera, hand in his pocket, casually killing a Black man because this is what he does. And you couldn't deny that's what you were looking at. We have to take that insight and apply it to work, jobs, housing, education, democratic participation, and understand that same disregard that they witness exists in the workplace, exists in the educational space, exists in the democratic space, exists in the infrastructure investments, and do something different. One of the things that we are concerned about, particularly in California, 75%, I bet it's 75, it was 73% not long ago, but let me just stick with the data I know. At least 73% of all children in California under 18 are of color. Young people in California are of color. This crisis will devastate them for years and years to come. Not only does it mean that they're coming into the workforce without a lot of jobs being there, but that means they don't get started on time. That means that they don't start in the jobs that they were training for. They take whatever they can get. It impacts their lifelong earnings. It impacts their ability to start a family. It even determines what their life expectancy would be. If we care about equity and inclusion and justice and racial equity, we need to place a priority on young people and make sure that we're using public resources and private resources and public policy to get them the start that they deserve. We've got to focus on that and understand that the racial dimensions of discrimination and all of the other things have to be taken into account. You can't just say open it up to people under a certain age. You've got to say, what are the challenges for the Black community? What are the challenges for the Indigenous and the Latinx community, and make sure that they're being addressed. It means that we cannot pretend that just having a transportation system means that everybody's going to have access to it. People of color disproportionately depend on buses and public transit, but they don't have as many riders, and so they're cutting back. But yet it's people of color, low income, who are the frontline workers and have to get to work. We have to place a priority on making sure that our public transit system will actually meet those needs. We know who the caregivers are. We know who the frontline workers are. We know who the cleaners are. We don't have to guess where we have to make sure we have living wage jobs to be able to help the people who are going to suffer most. That's what equity requires. Those are the kinds of things that we need to focus on, and we need to take the outrage that we felt felt about the murder of George Floyd and know that that murder is a slow murder that is happening for Black and brown people all across this country in every realm in which they are participants. And if we want to finally move beyond it, it's going to take race consciousness. It's going to take investments that are going a little beyond what we would ordinarily do. And we're going to have to measure how we're doing in terms of how the people who are disproportionately left behind are making progress.